What's going on, beautiful people? We are back again with another Mental Max Out podcast. I'm your host, Akeem Robinson. And for those of you joining us for the first time, thanks for checking it out. Mental Max Out is all about helping people change their perspectives, think differently, and get out of the hole. If you're back again, I celebrate your willingness to continue growing and challenging your mind. Remember, if you like what you hear today, make sure you hit that subscribe button or whatever platform you're listening from. Share it with a friend and follow us on social media at Mental Max Out Podcast. So excited to have you guys back again with us. And for you guys that were listening last time or joining us for the first time, I'm in the middle of a dissertation with me sending it in. My fingers were crossed that I had no corrections, and that was a big mistake. I had tons of corrections.
You had notes.
I had notes. And I'm in the process now of making those corrections. For those counting, I'm on draft 22.
22
times
Okay, Taylor Swift.
Don't got the money to go to that kind of concert, but yes, on draft number 22 of the dissertation. And I started to think it's taken me such a long time to get to this point that I can really see the finish line. And I would not have gotten here if it wasn't for mentors in my life. And when I really started thinking about some of those mentors, you came into that discussion as being one of the mentors for me making it to the finish line.
Oh, really now?
Oh, yes.
Me?
Yeah, yes.
Me, a mentor.
Yes.
To you?
Yes, you a mentor to me.
Okay.
With no PhD.
Explain.
And that was the thing. So when I started thinking about it, I was like, she has definitely been a mentor to me because you have helped me through so many different stages of it, of how to process it. What should I be thinking about? Because you have written more research-based papers than me.
Okay.
And it was a huge help because there were times where I was feeling put up against the wall. I was feeling moments of doubt. And you were saying, hey, in research, they might be looking for this. When I was writing research papers, this is what they were looking for. And it was such a huge help to get me out of some of those holes. You know what I mean?
No, thank you. I appreciate that. I think that when we think about the people in our life who have helped us get to a certain point, it's easy to consider mentors that have to be older. They have to have walked the path before you. They have to have a certain status or a certain title. And I think that we have mentors in our everyday life that we don't even maybe realize or acknowledge that they are a mentor. And so I know that for me and you to consider each other mentors, I told you that the other day, I'm in a new leadership position at work, and I've learned so much from you throughout your dissertation process and your research and your passion for leadership that I said to you the other day on the way home, I said, well, I was only able to do that with your mentorship. And you kind of gave me the same response of, oh, wow, I didn't know that you considered me a mentor. But I think that a lot of spouses maybe don't consider each other mentors.
And with that, I think that's the crazy part. A lot of people don't consider their significant other a mentor because they might see themselves as an equal. With them seeing themselves as an equal, they're like, well, there's nothing you can teach me. Not being rude to that person, but they're just not thinking about it,
Well, it's like in relationships, friendships even, like think about your best friend. It's you walk through life together, right? Like they're there with you. They offer advice. They help. They support you. But we don't consider them a mentor.
That's the trippy thing, because why is that? Why don't we consider people to be mentors? And I think it could be lost in the details. For example, the term mentor, the definition actually says an experienced and trusted advisor. And I think when you read that, you're saying, of course, that person has to be older. Of course, that person has to have these experiences that I have not had. But then that's where the details are missing. It's an experience, not an age. Some people can experience things a lot sooner than other people, and they can still be younger.
A trusted advisor.
Yes.
So somebody that you trust to offer you advice. So you're right. It could be somebody younger than you who maybe is going through an experience that you haven't been through yet.
And the key is, are you willing to let that person speak into your life to become one of those trusted advisors? That's the difference.
You can't be a mentor to somebody who does not want to be mentored. So in order to have a mentee, right, that person has to be willing to allow you to come into their life, to be a trusted advisor. I think that professionally, I have a bunch of amazing mentors who are athletic trainers who taught me and who guided me throughout college, throughout my career, in a bunch of different aspects of my life. And on paper and, via the textbook definition you just read, of course, they're my mentors. It's who I am professionally. But personally in my life, everybody in my circle is a mentor. My best friend is my mentor. My mom is my mentor. You are my mentor. I mean, shoot, Serena could be my mentor just because at the end of the day, who are you willing to listen to?
No question. In who are you willing to listen to, they don't have to be in your life for these long periods of time. Like you just said, Serena could be our mentor. I remember just recently we were sitting there having a heated fellowship conversation in the middle of Serena, and Serena's laughing around like, I don't care what you guys are dealing with, I'm having a great old time.
Yeah.
So you can either laugh and enjoy this experience, or you can continue to be fuddy-duddies and be mad at each other.
Yeah.
And in that moment, she was mentoring us to say like, your life is only going to look at how you look at it.
It's too short. It's not worth it. It's in her own way as a 1-year-old. And that's crazy. But again, we allow Serena to be a part of how we operate in our life. And so she can be a mentor. And I think that a lot of times it's hard I think as a mentor, it can be really challenging because if you have a heart to help people, to mentor people, to serve people, you really, really want them to listen. Or you want them to take your advice, or you can't understand, why won't they just listen? Like, I know better. I've been through that. I have the experience. Why don't they listen to me? And I think that it may be because that person, unfortunately, hasn't given you the space to speak into their life. I've had employees and former students before that I saw so much potential in, and I wanted to help, and they're so smart, and they could be so great, and I just thought if I could help them, then they would be great. And they did not care. They did not care about anything that I had to say. I didn't know anything from the sun up. There was nothing. I think whatever their reasons were, that I was just not the person to mentor them in that season of their life. And I think it's okay to admit that you may not be the person to help everybody.
I look at it, and that's such a great point too, because I look at it from a perspective of, as a mentor, we're there to guide them through life in the spaces that they allow us to guide them through. But we're not there to stop those experiences. And I think sometimes because we experienced some of the bad, we went through some of the things that we're like, oh, that decision is awful. We then tell this person and we expect them to do it, and they do the exact opposite. It's because we're just a guide. We're not there to stop those experiences from them, because sometimes that is their lesson. Sometimes that could be their blessing of how they want to go through that experience. We're just there to guide them through how they could think about it. And I really struggled with that in the beginning of my career, because in the beginning of my career as a coach, I went through the experience as a player. I went through the experience as a coach. So when I started teaching younger coaches, I was like, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. And then what I realized was I was giving them so many of my experiences that they weren't even going off of their own feel of how they should coach someone. They were like almost stunted by how much I was giving them, that they didn't even know what to do to be right. And so sometimes it's like, you know what? Let me just back up and guide them. Back up and let them fall. And that's sometimes how you can be a mentor, truly allowing people to guide them through life, but allow them the spaces to fall, because you know they're going to be able to pick themselves back up.
So you said that a mentor is a trusted advisor, right? An experienced or trusted advisor. And an advisor is somebody who gives advice. But advice is guidance or recommendations offered with regard to future action. Guidance or recommendations, not demands, not requirements, not the end-all be-all cemented in the Bible, like this is what you gotta do, 10 commandments. No, just a recommendation. Just hey, I think that you may not want to touch the stove.
That's it.
Just hey, maybe if you send that email, you're gonna get a phone call from HR. I think that a lot of times as mentors, it can be really challenging when people don't take your advice. And then on the flip side, as mentors, you know what you've been through, and hindsight is always 20/20. So you know what you could have done if you were in their shoes. And so you want them to do what you could have done, right? Like you were saying, if they were in your shoes. you're not giving them demands, you're giving them suggestions, and that's got to combine with their knowledge, their energy, their experience, what they want to do. And they may make the same mistake you did, they may not make the mistake at all, or they 50-50 might make half the mistake that you did because they halfway listened to you, and that's okay. But I think that it's really cool to consider the role of mentorship in a different way than what we're used to.
A mentor that was only in my life for a season was Chris Owens. At the time, he still is, but at the time he was up there as one of the presidents of the University of Southeastern. I remember going up to him and having this conversation about how I wanted to start the PhD program. And he was like, why? And I was like, oh, well, because I'm a black man. I want to do things in athletics, and I want to do this, and I want to do this. And he looked at me, he said, those are all great things, man. But the reason why you want to do a PhD is because you want to be able to speak multiple languages. And I was like, huh? I was caught off guard. I was like, multiple languages? He said, yeah, now that you have a PhD, you can speak to scholars. You can now speak to athletes. You can now speak to business. You can speak to so many different types of people now that you have a PhD. And that was one of the only conversations I've ever had with him. But it was such an impactful conversation because it altered the way I started looking at the PhD in that moment. And it's even changed how me and you discussed the PhD, the next steps after. From that one conversation, he mentored my path of how I'm going to take this PhD. And that's the thing. I think we want to place this investment in our lives of, well, you have to be in my life this long for me to allow you to be a mentor. And that's not true. They could be there for a split second, but if it's impactful, they have now become a mentor for a particular season that you may be going through. And I think that's the hard thing, because I think we think of it as a trophy. We think of it as somebody that's so wise, old, sage, but it's not. So who's a mentor in your life that's only been there for a season?
I think the other cool thing about seasonal mentors is that you can have reciprocal mentorship. I think that there are people in your life who you mentor and they mentor you back. I think it's the concept of, like, what do they say when the student becomes the teacher, right?
Oh.
Where like you spend so much time with somebody and then they become, brilliant, and then you learn from them. But I think for me, reciprocal mentorship of my best friend, the maid of honor in our wedding, her and her boyfriend moved in together after you and I started living together. And so we constantly were talking about, hey, what worked for you guys, and she would constantly ask me, for advice, or when they were trying to figure it out, what worked for us as we started, navigating living together. And recently our season has looked a lot like, a season that she was in previously. And so I've called her and said, hey, how did you handle this? How did you handle that? You can have that mentorship back and forth depending on the situation you were in. So it's not a, hey, I've been through that, I'm here for you. No, like, those are your mentors. Those are people who you can go back and forth with, And
it becomes a deeper level of friendship where not only are you now speaking in each other's lives, you're not debating to be right. You're not trying to state your piece and let that be the end all be all. You're trying to come up with solutions. You're coming up with newer foundations of how to handle sometimes present situations or even future situations that you may be going through.
As a new mom, and any moms that are listening to this know, having a group of other new moms is like the greatest thing in the whole wide world. And I have two friends who had babies about 2 months and 6 weeks before Serena was born. And so for us, what was really important for me during that time period after I had Serena was I had two other women who were just a little bit ahead of me that had their own struggles with different parts of, new motherhood that I could lean on. That made me feel less crazy. That made me feel like I was not losing my mind. That made me feel like what I was feeling was normal. And the beautiful thing about all three of us is that we are three completely different moms. We had three completely different journeys as it relates to whether or not we sleep trained our kids, whether or not we co-slept, whether or not they used pacifiers, whether or not they were breastfed, formula fed, combo fed, whether we pumped, whether we didn't. Like, all three of us have completely different scenarios on how we did, those first few months with our kids, but they're still my mentors. Regardless, they were teaching me that whatever I chose to do was okay. And I needed to hear that at that time. And these were women that I had friendships with, I went to happy hours with. So you will find mentors sometimes in weird places if you allow yourself to be open. I think that's a big thing as someone who likes to mentor. I know we have a lot of listeners to this podcast that are teachers. And as teachers, it's really easy to put yourself in the mentor category. But how often are you putting yourself in the mentee category? How often are you allowing yourself to be mentored, yourself to take advice from people, yourself to really just be willing to say, hey, I don't know, I don't understand, or I want to try something new, and you ask for help?
I noticed that early in my career, that when I was considered a mentor, and the reason why I was considered a mentor is because I was a coach. So athletes always kept coming to me, hey, coach, what about this? Hey, coach, this. But as I got older and somebody labeled me as a mentor, it was hard for me to understand that I could still be a mentee, that I could still be taught. And I think we get caught up into that old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Like, you can always learn. You're always one phone call away from being a mentor or one phone call away from being a mentee. And it's how you look at it and how you approach every season of, are you willing to learn? Are you willing to be taught? Are you willing to give a lesson? And that's one of the things that I continue to still learn. I've learned from you as well, too, in so many different areas, like you're teaching me. And even though it's going to say Doctorate Akeem Robinson, these steps have not been able to be accomplished without your teachings.
I mean, one day Serena is going to be mentoring us on how to use whatever face tat twit is going to be the new social media thing that is going to be out there, and it's no longer going to be TikTok, and we're going to be the ones that are, back in my day, we did these dances, and she's going to think that we're ridiculous.
There's no question.
But she'll mentor us one day because she'll think that we're uncool. But I think that it's really important to remind yourself to be willing to be mentored. One of the reasons why this podcast is so important, and hopefully if you're listening, one of the reasons why you feel it's important is because it offers you a different perspective, because it challenges your way of thinking, but also because you're willing to be mentored. Quite frankly, anyone who's willing to learn or be educated or change the way that they're doing something is open to mentorship, because somebody else then has to speak into your life. So whether it's reading, whether there's authors that you love, whether it's a podcast, whether it's music, whether it's, Good Morning America and Michael Strahan, like, you're willing to allow somebody to speak into your life. And so, just use this as a reminder to open yourself up to be mentored. And I'm not talking about the people who are, I have my mentor. It's Charlie Sue from college, who was my English professor, and, I call 3 times a year, and that's my mentor. No. Who is an active mentor in your life? Who are you constantly seeking guidance and advice from when you know you don't know it all?
One of the ways you can look at it is think about what kind of season of life you're in right now, and how do you need to be guided through that? Or who do you think can help guide you through that? I think once you ask yourself a profound question like that, you really have to sit with it and reflect on it a little bit and say, really and truthfully, what kind of season am I in?
I've definitely had mentors who I've held on to for a little bit too long. Mentors that were really impactful for an impactful period of my life. But as I grew and I changed, my beliefs and goals didn't necessarily align with theirs. Not saying they're not still great people, or I still, care for those people, but they're not necessarily a mentor to the magnitude that I, thought before. And I think it's important, as you reflect and you think about the people in your life who are mentoring you, do they still serve that purpose? Look at the people that you consider mentors. When was the last time you did an audit of the people that you consider mentors? Do they still serve the areas in which you allow them to speak into your life? Or are there other people in your life that would hold that space a little bit better for you because of who you are as a person? I know that for me, the people who were mentors to me in high school and college and my young adult life have always ebbed and flowed. I have women who I was very, very close with when I was younger that I'm not as close with now. I'm not saying I don't still love them or, touch base with them as frequently as possible, or that they still love me. But where I'm at right now in life, there are things that they don't understand. And I think that that's important as we start to audit those mentors, but then audit how you have them categorized in your mind, right? You have professional mentors, you have family mentors, you have relationship mentors, you have, I don't know, tax mentors. Like, you have people in your life for different purposes. And so just because somebody's a mentor in one area of your life doesn't necessarily mean you want their advice in the other. We all have those friends that we love to talk to about our relationship problems, and they're great mentors, but you dang sure don't want to talk to them about your political problems because they're not great political mentors to you.
Facts.
Right? So understand that mentors don't have to hold space in all the different areas that you need a mentor.
And not only do they don't need to fit every particular space, understand that when you are in a season of being mentored, it is uncomfortable. It's always tough to kind of reflect and have someone kind of teach you these sometimes impromptu, directly pointed at you, pinpointed things that you can look at, or some ugly things about you. Because every time I've been mentored, I always come out feeling beat up. But after it, I'm like, okay. Every time I show you a piece of my paper and you're like, okay, what are you trying to do with this? And this kind of doesn't make sense here. I'm like, oh, okay. But I feel so good because you looked at it. You helped me from a different perspective. And then I have somebody else look at it and they help pinpoint some more things. And then I can turn it in and feel really good about it.
When you put your papers into Grammarly, okay, and it gives you all the suggestions of things that you should change, right?
Mm-hmm.
I asked you this the other day. And then you copy paste it from Grammarly and you put it back into Microsoft Word, and Microsoft Word now has an editing software.
Mm-hmm.
So then you put your 100% Grammarly paper into Microsoft Word, and Microsoft Word says 95%.
Every time.
See suggestions.
Every time.
Because those softwares offer suggestions, guidance, or recommendation, right? And so it's like, understand too that you don't have to take the advice. You don't have to take the advice of the people who are speaking into your life. However, you do need to listen. That's it. You do have to listen to those people, but you don't have to do what they suggest. Mentors are there to offer that guidance and that suggestion, that experience, that they have an idea or they have a way of doing things or they have suggestions because of something that they've done before. But you don't have to take it, but be willing to listen to other people's perspective because you might get better from it.
That's powerful too, because we truly put so much emphasis on who we let in sometimes that when I ask people all the time, like, who can cover this area? Who you go to for this area? We have so limited people. And it's like, no, expand the group of people you go to, because you don't have to take all of that information in. You don't have to process every single thing that they're saying to you and have it be right. They're just giving you, like you said, a recommendation, a way to look at it. And truly, we are hammering this home because we're trying to have you understand as many languages as possible, because we don't know what season of life you're in. And when you have a variety of people that you can go to, you now have more suggestions. You now have more ways to look at it to enter that season with confidence, that you don't feel too overwhelmed and that you can make it through that particular time in your life. That's why having so many different mentors is a plus.
Okay, we're going to do something new this week that I thought about at one point. I didn't tell you any of this. This is all going to be new to you.
Love it.
We're going to leave you with a mantra for the week.
A mantra.
A mantra.
Love that.
So some sort of phrase, slogan, catchphrase, something that we can leave you with at the end of an episode that you can ponder as you go about your business this week. Okay? This week, our mantra is, mentorship is the bridge between potential and achievement.
Come on now.
Mentorship is the bridge between potential and achievement. Think about the people in your life, and are they helping you achieve something? Think about who you are as a person, and are you allowing yourself to be helped by somebody in order to achieve something?
Come on. Well, man, I hope you hear this heat coming off this microphone, because I'm telling you, she's cooking it up in here. And we're going to keep bringing those things for you to think about and for you to just continue to apply those things to your life. Look at yourself and see who can be mentoring you and see who you're mentee to, and continue to grow in those aspects of your life. We wish you nothing but the best.
Have a great week.
Thank you for joining us on this exciting episode of Mental Max Out. We hope today's discussion has empowered you with the insights and tools to overcome the challenges of depression, fear, and doubt. Always remember that you have a support system on this journey, and every step you take is a step forward towards victory. If you found this episode helpful, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review. We greatly appreciate your feedback as it allows us to continually provide you with the content that is most valuable to you. Stay connected with us on Instagram at Mental Max Out Podcast for a constant source of motivation, helpful advice, and a supportive community. Until the next time, keep pushing forward, and remember, you have the strength within you to max out your potential. Take care and stay strong.